With the release of the Switch 2 and Summer Games Fest at the end of the week, Sony has big plans of their own, and for once, they actually did something intelligent. Now, I'm not entirely sure if that is assessing the rest of the market and realizing that everybody's kind of fed up with these superficial price hikes and their very interesting justification for doing as much, or if this is kind of out of desperation, which when you look at the facts, or at least what has been presented so far, is a little out of column A and a little out of column B. But let's go ahead and give the devil its due here, because Sony confirms that the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, remember that launched, what was that? Oh my, I actually forgot, like November of last year? Yeah, that came and went. That is, like, okay, the Switch 2 is going to sell out and it's going to be a huge release for the system in the next couple of months. It's going to go bonkers for them. Yeah, that's all wonderful and fantastic. I don't really think it's going to have staying power, because you take a look at that games lineup and holy shit, I don't know what's coming out. Mario Kart World, Donkey Kong Bonanza, and a bunch of tumbleweeds. It's a fairly barren release cycle, very reminiscent of another console that they released a couple of generations ago, but I digress. One of the most anemic console releases, which it's not really like, a brand new generation, it's just simply a kind of an unnecessary upgrade, which, didn't really upgrade all that much, and, trying to run games that nobody bought to begin with for $750. Yeah, that went over about as well as, everybody anticipated it would. But yeah, it finally getting a discount, where at the same time, Microsoft, oh yeah, we know that nobody's buying our stuff, so yeah, we're just going to go ahead and raise the prices like $80 and $90 and $100. It's like, okay, we understand that you have so many eggs in the Game Pass basket, but do you have to make it so obvious that you want to get out of the hardware market? But Sony, they don't have the luxury of having the big captive sycophantic audience like Nintendo. They don't have the sugar daddy funding of Microsoft like Xbox does. They kind of are more or less beholden to the customers in a way that very few other industry giants have to be. Because you take a look at the other revenue streams that Sony has, and their other entertainment platforms aren't exactly doing all that well. Like a Sony movie is kind of synonymous with garbage at this point in time, unless of course it's co-producing with Disney to give you a Spider-Man movie. But outside of that, man, like who's excited about rewatching Madam Web or Craven? Yeah, exactly. Or hey, how well did Until Dawn do in the theaters? That just released a couple weeks back. Nobody heard about it, nobody watched it, and I think it's already out of the theaters. But Sony also used to be a hardware giant in and of themselves. Cameras, microphones, televisions. Oh, my 4K Blu-ray player is a Sony joint. And it's pretty good. I like it. It's been awfully reliable, but they've really pared down that industry in recent years and have kind of hyper-focused on a couple of different pieces of electronics and, really gaming. That's where they've made their big focus. So yeah, they can't mess around for too much longer, which is why while the rest of the industry is losing their mind, gouging their customers, Sony is doing something different, but it's intelligent for once. But yes, in a post on the PlayStation blog, Sony announced the return of Days of Play, which kicks off May 28th and runs until June the 11th. Days of Play begins May 28th at, minute after 1 in the morning and runs until, the last minute of June 11th. Okay, the local time, each region, all that crap. Deals on a PS5 console. Okay, in the US and Canada, you can get the PS5. Yeah, the PS5 with Call of Duty Black Ops bundle, a digital and standard, starting at $400. Wow, that's not bad. $510 Canadian, save up to $120 or $160 compared to buying separately. That's wild. Okay, in select regions of Europe, Asia, PlayStation console, starting at those different pricing, and then $50 off of the PlayStation Pro console, which is still way too much, especially for what you're getting. And given the fact that that $50 off essentially bundles the disc drive in with the PlayStation Pro, I mean, it's a start, but still, I don't really think that that's going to drive too many people. Like, maybe that $50 is enough for people that were, for whatever reason, saving up to buy the Pro. But at this point in time, anybody who was saving up to buy a PS5 Pro is probably just looking forward to the future, because we're already getting leaks about a potential PS6, but I don't think we're going to be hearing about that at the earliest next year, maybe. I don't know. There would be other offers on PS5 accessories, including $50 off the VR2 bundle. Okay. $30 off some headphones, $30 off the Edge. Okay. Oh, they're really overpriced and super luxurious deluxe controller. $30 off. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's still like over $200 a retail price. So I don't know. $20 off the Access controller and $20 off the DualSense wireless controller, which honestly, I think the DualSense is probably my favorite standard controller, like full stop. I really like the was it called the DualShock 4, the one that came with the PS4? I really like that redesign of the controller. I wasn't ever really a big fan of the traditional DualShock or even the one that came with the PlayStation 1, which I think is probably the most overrated console of all time. Like I like a lot of the games that are on there, but holy shit, and none of them stand the test of time. Like I really hate that entire generation. Not a fan of the 64, not a fan of the PS1, but I digress. Like prior to holding a DualSense controller, and I've modded mine out, and I've got a couple of other like little paddles on the back. So it's essentially an Xbox Elite controller, which prior to the DualSense, like the Elite controller, that was one of my favorites, like the 360 controller, and then how they eventually refined it. Like that's a banger controller, and I love that controller. It's like rechargeable. I actually have it still plugged in right there. My left camera right. It's a phenomenal controller, and it was only like $100. It was very well worth the price of entry, but for a DualSense Edge, like it being over $200 a retail, you can go stuff it up your ass, considering you only get 2 paddles on the back instead of the 4 that, Xbox offers. And given the fact that I just plug them all into the PC to play anyways, it's like, why are you pricing yourself out of the market, Sony? But hey, it's a step in the right direction. Oh yeah, and a bunch of games that are going to be, discounted as well. That'll be nice to see. I'm wondering if that's also going to carry over to Steam, but we'll see. We'll see. Meanwhile, yes, players who join PlayStation Plus during the year's days of play can save up to 33% on select 12-month memberships, which, yeah, that's another big psyop out there. Paying extra for a console internet service, starting with Xbox Live and then eventually PlayStation Plus, and now you get that fucking wonky ass Nintendo network that has never worked properly. Biggest scam in gaming, full stop. But hey, we might as well just continue with the good news, because Sony suggests it could move PlayStation manufacturing to the United States in response to President Trump's, proposed tariffs. Okay, starting to make, PlayStations on U.S. soil, bringing manufacturing jobs back home. I'm not exactly against that, especially if you're going to be finally breaking ground on some of those microprocessor facilities. Hey man, Sony wants to properly invest in that avenue as opposed to, having your creatives over here, because less of Sony of America and more of Sony of Japan when it comes to creating games. But if you're going to be making consoles and you're going to be making hardware on U.S. soil, I'm kind of down with that, okay? Sony CEO and President Hiroki Totoki, signaled that the company might move PlayStation manufacturing to the United States in response to Donald Trump's tariffs. During the company's most recent earnings call, Totoki was asked if the company had plans to move manufacturing to the United States. According to the Sony's English translator, he responded, yes, producing manufacturing locally, rather than saying for the entertainment segment, I want to look at it from the hardware segment and the software segment. In entertainment, gaming, like consoles, these hardwares, of course, can be produced locally. I think that would be an efficient strategy, but the PlayStation 5 are being manufactured in many areas. Whether it is going to be manufactured in the United States or not needs to be considered moving forward. We are not in such a critical situation. Yeah, exactly, because a lot of the places where Trump proposed some tariffs, there was just a negotiating tactic, and a lot of those places ended up smoothing over that stuff. But still, if they're looking at potentially setting up some places like several other, big businesses. I thought I heard something about Apple bringing some manufacturing jobs back stateside, or maybe it was another one of those mega corporations, which, spoilers, that's kind of who tariffs end up mostly benefiting, because when it comes to negotiating a bunch of those manufacturing deals, those are the guys that end up getting the sweetheart deals, and your mom and pops or your relatively smaller startups, those are the ones that end up having to get taxed out the asshole. So that's why I appreciate the tactic, but aren't exactly a big fan of tariffs, that for a multitude of other reasons. But yeah, okay. Good for Sony, man. Start making some consoles stateside, save on shipping, and potentially they can keep their prices competitive so that you could have more gamers enter the space, because, well, they might be on the cutting edge when it comes to hardware in console gaming. Like, PC obviously still leaves them in the dust, and Nintendo really doesn't care because they're just running out a console that's as powerful as a base PS4 in 2025. It makes all the sense in the world, right? But Sony, on the software side of things, it's not looking great. Okay, we talked about and we cataloged one of their most and gaming full stops, biggest backfires in all time last year with Concord, Herman Hulst and his stupid adherence to live service gaming. Set Sony on a trajectory for failure. And then you had Concord, and then they passed that shit-hot baton on to Marathon, and that looks like a disaster. And the game that was supposed to bridge the gap between those two expected and catastrophic failures was supposed to be Fairgames. Now, we talked about this when there was a trailer that was released at the tail end of last year, and yeah, it looked like it had all of the hallmarks of the modern deism bullshit that nobody would have been excited to play. And that was being created by Haven Studios, and it actually didn't know that one of the most successful creatives in recent years, Jade Raymond, the lady behind, the creation of Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs, like, a really good ideas person, somebody I hold in a very, very high regards. I know, right? I'm praising a woman in video games. Oh my God. Now let's talk about Amy Hennig for a second. But anyways, Jade Raymond, okay, left Haven Studios, a first-party Sony studio that she helped found after Fairgames ended up hitting some snags. Interesting. Jade Raymond, founder and CEO of Haven Studios, has left the company. As reported by Bloomberg, executive producer Marie-Eve Denis and Pierre-Francois Saponiski have been appointed as co-studio heads. Isn't that great? Raymond founded Haven in 2021. A year later, the developer was acquired by PlayStation Studios and is currently working on a debut live service titles, Fairgames, which was announced in 2023. Fairgames was due to launch this year, but has reportedly been delayed to spring of 2026, according to Bloomberg. Oh shit. Jade Raymond has been an incredible partner and visionary force at founding Haven Studios. A spokesperson for PlayStation Studios said, "We are deeply grateful to her leadership and contributions, and we wish her all the best in her next chapter." But yeah, she was somebody who, very much cut her teeth with exceptionally immersive single-player experiences. So buying up her studio and making them work on some stupid-ass live service game, where have we seen that before? Oh, right, multiple times over at Sony, which is, well, it's not great. But you take a look at that collage of games that they have right there, okay, with Concord being a historic failure, with the Marathon, it's just a matter of time. Like, they're going to release it, and nobody's going to care about it, and everybody's going to go, that's the game where they stole a bunch of art assets, right? That was from the people who made, that's from the people that made Halo. Oh shit, this is what's become of Bungie, huh? Very interesting stuff. But the one that's in the middle right there, Helldivers, okay, that's the one that, well, Helldivers 2 specifically, that's the one hit that Sony had, okay? Massive hit, okay, at the beginning of 2024. And then they started to needle it. Oh, you're going to need a PSN account. Oh, what's that? We don't need to listen to our audience. We don't work on balance changes, and we don't really need to have a steady stream of content. But Sony has been abominable with live service games, but because Helldivers 2 was such a success, they continue to chase that dragon. So how deep is Sony's commitment to live service? Well, we're about to see, right? Because Sony's live service ambitions have steadily scaled back. But questions remain about Bungie and how much the overall PlayStation strategy hinges on live service. In many regards, things are going very well for Sony right now. PlayStation 5 has sold strongly. I don't understand why, but it is. By all reporting, it is selling exceedingly well for a console that didn't release a first-party AAA title last year. It's fucking wild, but anyways, generally slightly outpacing the performance of the PS4 at equivalent points in its life cycle, despite cost pressures that have kept its retail prices high, but it has just gone on sale, okay? Its biggest direct competitor, Microsoft, started the generation with a great hardware lineup, but ultimately pivoted away from the console exclusives and became one of the biggest third-party publishers on PlayStation. And yeah, I very much think that the next thing that we're going to hear out of Microsoft is, hey, we're going to be putting Game Pass on the Switch too, and oh yeah, we're going to bring it over to Steam, and yeah, Master Chief Collection is coming to PlayStation in order to augment the release of Gears of War. Was that remastered? The first one's getting remastered. I forget the title of it, but yeah, here you can have the Master Chief Collection on PlayStation. Well, fucking mind-blowing, but all right. Sony has has an enviable lineup of studios and premium first-party game franchises. Well, it's a shame that they aren't flexing any of those muscles, instead just letting Neil Cuckman run wild, holding Uncharted hostage. Meanwhile, he's launching another girl boss simulator with Intergalactic. Oh, but don't worry, Naughty Dog's working on another project, bro. It's not going to see the fucking light of day because Intergalactic is going to land with a thud. I can't wait for that to come out. What a mess. Anyways, yeah, it's gradually building up a solid sideline business in PC versions of its blockbuster titles. Not to mention that GTA 6, yes, last year will turn up and presumably sell sell absolute truckloads of PS5s in the process, especially if they team up with GTA 6 and they have a PS5 bundle with that. Bro, that would be the smartest thing that they could do. Because in that most recent GTA 6 trailer, there was no announcement of a PC port, because that's traditionally what Rockstar has done with the GTA games. They wait a year or 18 months before they release the PC port, and they keep it on console. And with Microsoft ostensibly not in the business of making consoles anymore, and Nintendo nowhere near as powerful enough to put GTA 6 on the Switch 2, it really does just simply fall to PlayStation to take the easy W for an entire unencumbered year. But it's not all quite so rosy, of course. With the view of a longer term, for example, it's not unreasonable to point out that while the console business has stubbornly defied all the predictions of a collapse over the past decade or two, well, we're right now on that precipice. It has certainly found itself smacking off a glass ceiling somewhere around the installed base mark achieved by the PlayStation 2. Yep, the second best-selling right now the best-selling console of all time, with the Switch threatening, which I could imagine them leapfrogging if they keep it in circulation long enough, but I digress. And yes, the additional growth seems elusive despite rising costs across the board. And who's causing those rising costs? This strategic enigma is Bungie. Okay, or more specific, the entire content strategy was meant to be anchored around the $3.6 billion acquisition of Bungie back in 2022. What a disaster that has been. Well, this is, chicken feed compared to the money Microsoft is splashing around on gaming acquisitions during the same era. Yeah, exactly. Bethesda, well, ZeniMax, and then of course Activision Blizzard. That deal was what, $69.2 billion? And the Bethesda deal, I thought that was 8 or something like that. But yeah, when Sony came out and it's like, hey guys, we bought Bungie, and after everybody was done chuckling under their breath, they're like, how much did you pay for it? $3.6 billion. It's like, bruh, they've been done with Halo for like over a decade at this point in time. What the fuck do you think you're getting? Oh, Destiny. Cool, that's a woman's name. It was an enormous purchase for Sony, as meant to kickstart a major change in how the company would make games. Yeah, and what have they done so far? Wrapped up Destiny 2 and showed off how many art assets they could steal. Anyways, yeah, man, we could recount the failure that was Concord. It was about 10 years of development and hundreds of millions of dollars thrown out the window. Helldivers 2, its unimpeded success being thrown a roadblock for no discernible reason, all because they wanted additional control over the most successful PC game at the beginning of 2024. Sony is the only company that can stop Sony's success. They have victories around every corner if they're just willing to take them. I'm not being a Sony shill. It wasn't until Final Fantasy VII Rebirth came around that I bought a PS5. I had no intentions of ever purchasing one. I was about done with console gaming because PC gaming does it all better, okay? Somebody who grew up on consoles, I can just, outright admit that at this point in time, yeah, PC is exactly where it's at. But at the same time, Sony has this unique opportunity. There really is no console war anymore. It has been decided. They have won. And with Nintendo off in a corner doing God knows what, launching a new console at an egregious price, Sony can rekindle a little bit of good faith if they're just simply willing to make a couple of concessions. Stop focusing on these stupid live service games. Stop chasing that stupid dragon and instead put out quality games, which guess what? You take a look at the biggest games of 2024 so far, a lot of them are single player experiences. Some things that you used to turn your nose up at are once again the biggest games of the year. Go back to what you're good at. Otherwise, you'll end up going the way of Sega and the Xbox brand. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.